Hi, folks. Jerry Gagne here. Welcome to Foys on Facebook. As most of you know, I do the first 10 or 15 minutes early so that if there are rough spots or some little glitch, we can correct them before the show starts officially at 3 o'clock. So I never know what I'm going to talk about. I did realize just before we went on the air that I didn't have my hat. As some of you know, I don't know what it is. I like hats, but I never wear them. So for the show, I had to run back and get this hat. I have a whole collection of hats. Um, what I wanted to talk to you about today is a book that I wouldn't be without. People ask me about that, and when it's we all remember, not we all, a lot of us remember Mr. Levi had a book called The Pigeon, and it was the standard for years and years and years. I still use it and refer back to it on occasion. He has a lot of old time remedies and some remedies that are still available, and there's pictures of pigeons. But anyway, this gentleman, who's a veterinarian, Colin Walker, from Australia, wrote this book. It's called The Pigeon, and it's a magnificent piece of work. It's over 600 pages, and mostly on the health of pigeons, other things, but generally speaking, it's the health of pigeons. And when I have a question, it's my go-to book. I wanted to find something and talk to you, so don't mind me, I'm not a professional. One of the questions asked is he has a section called questions, and now I can't find it. Hold on. Ah, can't even find it, and I was reading it before I even started, but 600 pages, I don't think I'm going to go through it. But if you're looking for one that's written so that you can understand it, this is the book. If you have a question on health, now I know a lot of you call me and give me the symptoms and things like that that I have to know in order to at least try to help you. Well, Dr. Walker covers everything in this chapter after chapter. I don't know what the book cost. I'm guessing somewhere around $80, but I don't know. But 600 pages, 99% of the pictures are in color. Um, give you an idea, diagnostic, how to diagnose what you've got, what the issues are, looks at the symptoms and things like that. There's, we're going to be talking about the pigeon pox vaccine this afternoon when my co-host joins us. And the pox vaccine is talked about, and a lot of the information I got that I'm going to share with you is in this particular book. Just a great. I often wonder why people who call me with so many questions, and believe me, it's what I do. I give out my home phone number. I'm not trying to discourage that, but if you really want to learn, sure, asking me a couple of questions will help a lot. You'll learn something. But a book like this is a gold mine to you. You can sit down and read it page after page after page. I'm not saying sit down and read it like you would a book or a novel or something, but if you have a question about your birds, generally speaking, the answer is here. The symptoms are described. The medication that he suggests is described. It goes on and on and on. Reading, I wanted to look at the pox vaccine, and I read about it because I know what pox is, but I wasn't 100% sure of all of the information I wanted to share with you. Well, I went to this book. It talks about loft design. It talks about nutrition, health programs. It goes on and on and on. And I sure wish I could find that one. Frequently asked questions. Uh, it bothers me. It's in here somewhere. Um, so I can't find it. But I wanted to share with you the fact that if you want to learn, generally speaking, you go and you. Am I sitting back too far? Okay. You would go to a book or a video. In fact, videos are the way to go anymore. You type in almost any subject, um, there are videos, but no in-depth information about pigeons because we're just a little small niche business. So to buy a book, I strongly recommend it. Um, there's so much to learn from Dr. Walker, who also sells pigeon medications and products from Australia. Uh, Pigeons, there it is, Pigeons A to Z on page 558. So I just was kind of going through, I'm going to pick some of these things out, give you an idea. He talks about the eye sear at the very beginning. That eye sear, if you don't know what it means, it's spelled C-E-R-E. It's the skin around the eye. And he talks about appetite. Why are your birds not eating? Or why are your birds eating so much more than they ever did before? He talks about the pigeon droppings. And if you've ever called me before and asked me about your pigeon's health, the very first thing I ask is, what color are the droppings? Well, Dr. Walker is where I get some of my information. He talks about green droppings, red droppings, uh, an increase in volume. For instance, I'll get calls during breeding season, and they'll say, I don't understand it. My pigeon, the volume of the droppings, the volume of the poop is this big. It's huge. I've never seen that before. I have no idea what's going on. Are they sick? Generally, no. Generally, what happens is, as most of us know, your cockbird lays on the eggs roughly 10 or 11 in the morning till 4 or 5 at night. Then the hen takes over and she sits on the eggs for anywhere from 16 to 18 hours without coming off that nest. So that means she has not gone to the bathroom, so to speak, in 16 to 18 hours. When she comes off, whew, it comes out of her, and you get big mounds of droppings. So bird not sick, that's just the way it is. And they talk about dehydration. That's when the birds are skinny and lack, mostly it's a liquid problem. The eyelid, the eye, condition of feathers, the pages of information on feathers. That talks about parasites and symptoms of parasites or things that you can see, like the little pinhole feathers, or you might be handling a bird and all of a sudden you see a fly dipping in and out of the feathers. That's a pigeon fly who is a problem. He sucks blood, so he can create all kinds of problems for you. Then he breaks it down as a swollen abdomen, talks about the throat, the tongue. Why is my bird throwing up or vomiting? Talks about the wing and yawning. In fact, I read about yawning just before we went on the show, and I can just read this to you because you get I get questions about that. My bird seems to open its mouth and be yawning. It says, yawning, if seen in birds attempting to relieve throat or sinus irritation. So the yawning could be as they stretch out, it releases some of the pressure and they've got respiratory issues. Also may be associated with wet canker. A lot of folks don't realize just if a bird gets canker, it doesn't have to show in the throat. They can have canker in their ear, they can have it in their rectum, they can have it around their eyes. But when a bird yawns, that could be part of the problem too. Wet canker. There's a mite. It's called a air sac mite, and if the pigeons have an air sac mite, they could be yawning. So one of the things I learned is sometimes it's the feed itself. We all feed most of us feed a grain mix. There's a couple of different, a lot of different seeds in pigeon feed. One of them is flax, F-L-A-X, and it's a real small, thin, brown seed. But sometimes when they're eating these small seeds, the seed, especially flax, will stick to the inside of the throat. And it's irritating, and the birds are yawning. They're trying to get that little seed out of their throat, much like if you eat, we all do it, eat an apple or something, and if something gets stuck in your throat, you're trying to get it out. So pigeons have the same problem. The regular show's gonna start in about 2 or 3 minutes. We've already got a question up on the screen, which leads me to maybe suggest, my co-host will be suggesting it also, is we're here to help you. If you help us with your questions, it makes for a better show. If you help us with your questions, you're helping other pigeon fanciers too, because for whatever nature, whatever reason, a lot of people are afraid to send in questions. Well, by you sending in a question, you're helping other people too, and maybe you'll give them the courage. I would imagine it would be almost impossible to get you folks to do it if we put you on Facebook so we could see your picture. But if you have a question, send it in, and we'll be helping a lot of other people. That's pretty much it. As most of you know, if you don't know, this is our new catalog. We've got a lot of comments about it. There's the back. It came out about 2 weeks ago. If you don't have a catalog and want to place an order, when you order, you mention your catalog, or we may just stick it in there. Catalogs are absolutely free. I had a gentleman in just before the show started, and I said to him, "Do you have the catalog?" Well, Sherry was about to give him one, and I got to talking to the gentleman who's from Cleveland. They drove down for a load of the feed that we sell, Versalaga feed, which is kind of hard to find. And he wanted, I asked him, I said, "Do you belong to a club?" One of them was a racing homer man. He says, "Yeah." I said, "How many guys in your club in Cleveland?" And he said, 40. I stacked up a whole big box of catalog, and I'll do it for you too. If you have friends that want a catalog, or your club members, we'd be glad to send you a catalog. It's brand new. A number of new items in the catalog. In the back, we've added something for record keeping. So that's for your young birds. This is your breeding pairs and what young ones they've produced. We also talk about some different diseases, pictures in color describing what your disease is. We're going to be talking about pigeon pox. Well, there's some pictures of what pigeon pox looks like. So, I don't know if our clock is accurate or not, but I, being the owner of the company, being the big boss, especially when Gina's not here to bug me, if I want to close down my show, I close it down at 3 o'clock. I'll see you in a few minutes. I hope, am I still on the air? Hi, Gina.
Hi, Fred.
You're not Gina. My guest host, co-host, is none other than uh, Sherry. Sherry and I are going to do the show together. Gina, some of you may know, tripped in our warehouse, one of our warehouses, and badly sprained her ankle. So, um, along with that, she has an elbow problem, so she's at the doctor's right now, getting a checkup. We hope everything turns out well. But I'll shut up now, and Sherry Verico is going to introduce our show.
Are you ready? Okay. Well, of course, he already introduced me, and of course, everybody knows Jerry, and we have Veronica off to our side here. And today's show, of course, Jerry mentioned before, it's about pox, the virus, um, maintaining a good airflow in the hot and humid weather.
Sounds like an exciting show.
I know.
Where'd you get the hat?
I borrowed it.
Did you? From my collection, huh?
From your collection, yes. I figured you wear a hat. I thought I was supposed to wear a hat too, so
Look better on you than me.
I just picked it up.
Okay.
And we also, before we get started talking on the topic for today. I would like to announce the auction winners, which are for the racing homers. It's is it Kelvis Lopez? Won the auction at $280.
Wanted to interrupt because I do a lot. On that pair of birds, Kelvis, you are getting a pretty special pair of pigeons. Bob gave them to me a while back and told me to sell them on the auctions. So when you get these birds, you'll be really excited to get them. You got your money's worth when you got those.
Done?
Done.
Okay. The next is, what are those, croppers?
Yep, holy croppers.
Holy croppers. And that goes to...
Almost sounds like a swear word, doesn't it? Holy croppers.
I know, it does.
Isn't that sort of like holy crap?
Yeah. Okay. And the winner there is Paula...
Morency.
You write too small.
Morency.
And that's for $150. And the American Fantails goes to Robert, is it Morrow?
Morrow, M-A-R-O, yeah.
For $400. Congratulations
to
all of you.
About the fantail?
Why, certainly. Go right
No,
ahead.
don't you be picking on me like Gina.
I'm not picking on you.
Oh, well, I pick on Gina.
I'd pick on her too.
By the way, Sherry is our oldest employee other than in continuous service other than Kim, right?
Yeah, I
How
guess
many years now?
It's going on, I think, 15.
15. You think you'll stay on the job or haven't made up your mind yet?
I'll probably stick around for a few more years.
Okay, well, that's great. Hi there. You can go that way. It's no big deal. Mailman, just mail person, just delivering our mail. On those fantails, most of you, if you have fantails, if you show fantails, you know the name Tom Pritchett. Tom is from Oklahoma. Without a doubt, probably the most prominent American fantail breeder in the country, including Canada and other places. He has won the Grand National with the top bird in the country with his fantails. He's won at various shows, very, very well respected. When he offered 2 pair of birds to us, which are to support the Legacy Fund Trust. We raise money to help people in the pigeon hobby. He said, Jerry, he says, I've already mentioned it to a few of my friends that I'm going to donate these birds. He says, start the bidding out at 400. He says, I says, I can't do that. He says, yes, you can. And the gentleman who we just mentioned, was it Mayo?
Robert.
M-A-R-O, Morrow. Anyway, he purchased the birds, and I'm sure he's very happy with them. We'll be very happy with them. We'll send them out on Tuesday. And also, I wanted to tell you, on the very next show, 2 weeks from today, we're going to have a pair of solid white, beautiful birds that he's donating also. And we varied a little bit, and Tom suggested something, and we've never done it before. Tom is going to send those birds directly to you from his home, from his loft. His reasoning was, well, if I've got to send them to you, and you've got to send them to the customer. He said, why don't we just cut that out? You tell me who bought them, and I'll send the birds right to them. And you also certainly can contact him. There's no secret who Tom Pritchett is. Thank you.
Okay, and I also, as with the auction birds, I want to tell you that Jerry normally ships on Tuesdays, weather permitting. If it's very hot, he will not ship the birds.
And hot meaning above, let's say above 80. I'm very, very cautious, and a lot of times before I ship, I'll pull up a map of your state or where I'm going to send them to see what the temperature is going to be there the next day or the day after.
So you can call immediately after the show to pay for your birds. And again, he usually ships on Tuesdays, and he always calls you and lets you know when he ships them.
Yep. Are you done? I mean, I haven't had any chance to say anything yet.
I guess you can just go right ahead if you'd like to go on to the.
Yeah, well, instead of going right to this topic, this gentleman sent Dishon, you think that would be a man? I don't know. So if you're a female, I apologize. I had a question. He says, my old female pigeon. Oh, I'm sorry. You're supposed to read that. I'm not supposed
Just
to.
taking over the show.
No, go
Why
ahead.
am I
You read
even
the,
sitting
go ahead,
here? I'll
read the
tell
question.
you. It says, "Hi, sir. My old female pigeon, now 2 years, don't lay eggs. Is there any medication for this?"
Okay, well, I'm assuming it's a single bird. It's not a common problem within the loft itself. And if my eyes go off, I'm reading the screen. Um, I don't know for sure, but at 2 years of age, it certainly should have laid an egg. So I don't think it has anything to do with fertilization, because that affects the hen or the cock. I think in your particular case, it's a problem with the hen. But the first thing I suggest, and I don't know whether this is the case or not, if you've had that hen mated to the same cockbird for 2 years, then you've got to try switching. Take the hen and mate it to a completely different cock. And if you do that, don't do it in the same section, if at all possible. Do it in another loft or put it in a breeding cage of some sort. And hopefully, if you do it that way, the hen can't hear her mate cooing in another section. You want to cut it off completely, and then don't try remating them at the same, within a day or two. Give that hen a few days without her male, and then put them together. If you put them together right away, you're going to have a lot of fighting. I think it's better to let the hen miss her original mate, give it 3 or 4 days, and then put them back together. What that's going to accomplish is it'll eliminate the possibility that it's a male problem, because if you put it with a different male, I said that wrong, it'll tell you the problem was the male, because if she has eggs to a second male or second mate, then you know what the problem was. If she never lays them, give her a month or so, 4 or 5 weeks. If she does not lay, then the problem is the female. Hi, Vicky. My wife just called me a dork.
Called me a dork.
You?
No, not you, him.
Oh.
My wife just called me a dork because of my hat. How do I handle that?
I don't know. Well,
She,
who's the bigger boss?
yeah, she's a hit and run person. She came over and called me a dork and left. Oh, anyways, getting back to and Wayne, I'll be with you in just a second. The other thing you can do is to try a fertility pill. It has hormones in it, so it may change that. So the bird's not sick. If it's 2 years old and gone through the whole process, I'm assuming that the bird was mated to a cockbird, and they went through the process. The male chased the hen all over the place until she went into her nest. She's in the nest and laying just like she's going to lay, but never lays. It's not an uncommon problem, but it usually is solved by changing mates. See, I can take a one-line question and talk for half an hour.
I see that.
You know that.
I know
You've been around long enough.
I know, I have.
Go ahead.
Okay, Wayne. It says corn is no good for pigeons. Haven't fed it for 20 years. No disease.
Well, Wayne, with all due respect, you are incorrect. Just plain wrong. Corn is beneficial to pigeons. We buy a lot of feed from Europe, and especially it comes from Belgium. Belgium is the birthplace of pretty much the pigeon hobby. It did start in Italy, but Belgium is well known, and the majority of their feeds contain corn. It's a low protein, but it is nutritional for them. It puts weight on birds, especially fed in the wintertime, not as important in the summertime during breeding season. One of the only issue you might have with corn is if you're buying corn from a feed store or maybe from a farmer, there's some big yellow corn, large kernels, and that's hard for the babies to take into their mouth and to break it down. So I'd, I'd like to see some proof that pigeons don't eat corn because there's no benefit to it. There absolutely is. We were talking earlier about when I was on the show by myself about Dr. Walker's book. You can go to any pigeon book and it breaks down the benefits of all grains. Corn is beneficial. Most people don't feed corn in the summer, but they do go to corn in the wintertime. So I went on and on with that one, but and I hope I didn't hurt his feelings, but that's not the case.
That's all right. Everybody has an opinion.
Well, you know what they say about opinion.
What?
Well, I can't use that word on the show. Everybody's got one.
See, I told you.
And you can't see it from the front unless you're looking in a rearview mirror. Okay.
Okay. All right, moving on to Charles. A couple of my birds have watery droppings. What can I do for
Buy the book.
it?
It's in here. But I do have to, Charles, I have to ask you this question. What color? Would you not have asked?
What color is the droppings?
Well, would you ask anything else you want to know?
I would say what is he feeding them?
No. Good one.
Any other symptoms?
Perfect. First question, and this brings up a good point. Sherry's been with us now 15 years. 15 years of people asking questions about their pigeons and about pigeon health. After 15 years, you become pretty much an expert. And a lot of people, when they call and talk to Kim or Gina or what's her name again?
Susie.
Susie Q. Sherry. They know what they're talking about. But us being male chauvinists, you know what, don't want to believe that a woman might know more about pigeons than they do. When it comes to pigeon health, you can't beat these girls. They know what they're talking about. So, the question that Sherry brought up is first thing we have to ask is what color? They're watery, but are they green? Are they dark green, light green? Are they
Clear.
brown? Are they black?
Clear.
Clear. You know. So, Charles, if you just send in an answer again, number one, I'm going to ask you, do they seem to be healthy? What color are the droppings, as Sherry mentioned? What are you feeding? So, give us as much information. When they call me at my house, I have to ask a lot of questions before I even attempt the diagnosis. But in some cases, guy called me yesterday about his disease, and he described it, and I said, "You can stop right there." I said, "I know what you got. You got coccidiosis because of the stool and the blood in the stool droppings." So, but it's important. Give us as much information as you can. Charles, send another question in. Another a comment in specifically on do they act right? Are they bleeding? Are they sick? Okay. We have another question, Veronica, or am I on my way to being something else, saying something else? Oh, we're going to talk about that. I'll tell you what. Well, is that Charles? 16%.
Dark green. Any other?
Oh, I think he's talking. Maybe the 16% is protein level. Charles, is that the 16% is protein level? With pigeons, the recommended dosage is 12 to 14%. 16% is not an issue. It would not change the color of your feed unless you are feeding pigeon pellets. So, if they're green, generally speaking, that is a bacterial infection. But you have to tell us, I don't want to make this more complicated, but what else do we have to know about the green?
Green. Whether what, dark, light?
Yep. See? We have to know, are they very yellowish green? Or
Lime green.
Lime green.
And the dark green. And
Okay.
any other symptoms that go along with it?
I'm not trying to make this more complicated than it is, but you can see what we go through on the telephone. It isn't just a simple answer. We need answers too, so we're going to ask you back. So Charles, get right back to us. The question we have is 16% protein. He's saying yes. What color are the droppings? While Charles is getting back, let's go to Tony.
Tony?
Yeah.
What's the best way to overcome a virus?
Patience. Patience. We're going to be talking about pigeon pox, which is a virus, but there is no treatment for a virus. It's as simple as that. If you have a virus, there's no medication that is going to cure a virus. That being said, doesn't mean you shouldn't put them on antibiotics, but the antibiotics are not going to treat the virus. What they're going to do is help the bird through it. Many times when a pigeon gets a virus, humans are the same way.
You can get Nutridrops.
Yeah, well, bring that up after. Okay. But I was going to, you interrupted me, you know.
Sorry, I was
Gina never does that.
Wow, that's Gina.
Oh, but when you secondary infections are common in when a virus is there. In fact, we're going through this pandemic, and a lot of the people who are getting the virus are also getting, as a secondary infection, the pneumonia or virus or respiratory issues. So, in the answer to your question, there is no treatment, but a gentleman by the name of Mike Owens wrote an article in a Pigeon magazine, and he strongly recommended. Go ahead.
Nutridrops, which helps them get through it.
Nutridrops is an all-natural product. It's not a medicine. Mike lost 1,000 pigeons. 1,000 pigeons, so it gives you an idea how many he had. And he was completely lost. He talked to veterinarians. He talked to me. None of us could figure out what the problem was. The birds were healthy one day. Every day, he almost had to go into that loft with a bag to pick up the dead birds. He finally tried something called Nutri-Drops, just like you said, N-U-T-R-I, Nutri-Drops. We don't know how it works, why it worked. It stopped that virus in its tracks. So I'm glad that Sherry mentioned it. I would have forgot. If you're going to try anything for a virus, Nutri-Drop, and you can also add an antibiotic to the Nutri-Drop at the very same time. Good question.
Okay, this is from Vicky. It says that, hey, I'm a very good sport. Thanks, Vic. Hi, Jerry. Do crows go after pigeons when they fly?
I'm assuming, Vicky, that they might be happening to you. It's not a problem, but my gut feeling is that the crow, if there are crows that are chasing your pigeons, they are nesting in the general area, and they're trying to chase your birds away from their young or their nest. It does not happen to me. In fact, it happens, and all of us have seen it, I think, where these little chickadees or sparrows are chasing the crows. Big crow, a little tiny bird, and a flock of them are chasing the crows away from their nest. This is just the opposite, but I think it might apply. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's talk about, and I appreciate it. We're getting so many questions, and that's great. Makes our show go so much quicker and so much more information. And we sometimes have to go overtime.
I know.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I noticed that.
We haven't heard from the gentleman yet about the color of the green dot, right? No. We wanted to talk a little bit about ventilation in a loft. Something comes to my mind when I say ventilation, and what we're going to be talking about is a line basically when you're trying to sell a house, or real estate is trying to sell your house, or a business. Location, location, location. The value of a home or a business is heavily in favor of the location is just so important. So ventilation is just as important. If you have a loft that's not ventilated properly, you're asking for trouble with your pigeons and respiratory issues and breathing problems. But it's also going to affect you over time, because if you're not ventilating your loft, you're breathing in the same thing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, here, you can talk about that, and when I'm done with one, you can go to the next one. All of my lofts, at the moment, I have 4 lofts, a total of 15 different sections. Every loft that I've built have what's called whirlybirds. That go spin around. You put them in underneath your shingles. Any roofer could do it. You could do it yourself. And what happens is they spin in the air based on the wind blowing. And all it takes is a little bit of a breeze to spin them around. They're great. They're not the final answer, but you should have ventilation in your roof. Heat rises. As heat rises, dust rises, and it goes through. Now, if you just do the whirlybirds, that's good, but it's not as good as you can have it, because in order for hot air to rise, you need cooler air, or air coming in from the bottom. So along with your whirlybirds or torrents, or whatever you might want, turbos, they call that turbos too, what you want to think about is to have ventilation lower. Something as simple as opening up a window. Of course, you don't want a window for the birds to get out. Open up a window either that's not in the loft or is in the loft where your birds are. You're going to cover it with 1 by 1 wire, or 1.5 by 1 wire. You don't want chicken wire. Chicken wire is not the best because it has holes that might be 2 inches, and the little birds can get through that. So 1 by 1, 1 by 1.5 wire over any opening.
Can I also suggest, when you do that, you have to watch where you put your perches, right? Because of a draft, and they could get sick. No?
But I want you to know that I appreciate your questions, because if you're thinking about it, they are thinking about it. Maybe
Yeah, but a draft, that we get a lot of phone calls with people, and you ask about in a draft.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And they
a draft is generally a crack, a small crack in the wall, or in the ceiling or something. Whirlybirds going around like that, it's just like opening a door with a screen door or something. You're still getting a airflow. The important thing, and it's a good question, the important thing, it's raining, the important thing is air flow. Now, if you don't have air moving through your loft, you're not ventilating. But if you have small gaps, then that creates a draft. It's a confusing thing, because on the one hand, we're telling people, if the bird is catching a one-eyed coal, move the perch because it's probably sitting in a draft. But a lot of times you don't even know that draft is there. And the simple answer is try moving the perch. First thing you ever do, move your perch, and that in many cases will stop the draft and the bird sitting in. I know that's confusing and it's not a good answer, but it's the only answer I'm going to give you.
Well, that's fine with me.
Okay.
That answers me.
Okay. What's the next one?
You did floor level vents.
Yep. Right there.
Ridge vents.
Ridge vents. If you are building a loft or putting a new roof on your loft, there's something called a ridge vent. A ridge vent, assuming you have a gable roof or a hip roof, and they come up to a point on the roof. Well, they sell ridge vents, which go across the very top of your roof, and they have small holes in them to allow air to go out. Because remember, heat rises. So with a ridge vent, it's a good way to ventilate your loft, but I keep going back to it. It does nothing if you don't create an airflow. So a ridge vent is way up high, so you want down lower, have some sort of a way for fresh air to come in, and we'll be talking about that. Ridge vent is a good way to go.
Okay, I have Wayne. Proper airflow is essential, but a wide open loft is not. To my liking, pigeons and moderate heat are a good combination.
Wayne, thanks a lot. Backing up kind of what we said. Um, wide open loft is not to my liking. Okay, well, we were back to opinions and things like
Right.
that. Everybody has a different idea, but Wayne is agreeing that you need to have airflow. Most important thing is to have airflow.
Okay, did we
Thanks, Wayne.
soffit vents?
Yep. A lot of people don't know what soffit is, but almost all homes have a little bit of an overhang on their roof. Um, I'm sorry, on a roof overhang. Some of it's like this, some of it's 4 foot out. Um, and the soffit is the piece underneath, and the piece coming this way, if you're looking at it, is called fascia. The soffit boards have vents in them. So the airflow is going into it from through the soffit vent, but you've got, if you put soffit on, and you already have soffit, make sure, and then I don't know how you do it unless you took the piece down, or you might know where you're installing it. You don't want solid wood underneath your soffit because the air is hitting the wood. It's not going to do any good at all. So soffit vents are good if your roof has an overhang.
Okay, did we do the large wall vents? We kind of talked about the large wall vents.
No, we didn't
No.
do them. Why don't you ask me to do
Large wall vents,
Okay.
Jerry.
Large wall
What are
vent.
those?
And we'll talk, I think the next one is the big fan. Um, man, if you don't know, we're in our warehouse. This is where we do our show, and we have a big garage door that's open. It's raining like crazy. Um, Large wall vents. You've seen them. Maybe don't realize they work in your loft too. We know what if you're ever on a turnpike or in an area where they keep pigs, you'll see these long buildings where the pigs are kept. And on one end of the building, you'll have a fan, literally, it could be 3 or 4 feet in diameter. It's going and going, it's pulling air in. And on the opposite side, or in the roof, there are openings where, as it blows fresh air in, it's pushing the bad air out. Um, this is a little known fact, but you didn't know this. Pigs don't sweat. They need a way to let that old air out and bring new air in. They sweat very little. That's why when you see a pig coop, a pig sty, that's what they are. Big long one, you'll see these huge fans, and that's to try to keep the pigs cool. So the same theory works with pigeons. Especially if you have a big loft. If it's a smaller loft, you can put a smaller fan in. But I know there are people who have 50, 60 foot long uh, lofts, especially with the racing home with people doing the one loft race. So those big fans on the end of the building on the wall.
Okay, how about the floor level vents?
You may have seen these, maybe you haven't seen them. Um, let's say your wall comes down and hits the floor. What you might want to do, once again, airflow. But this far up, you cut that board off the wall, right at the base level, and you cover that area that you cut. You've taken the wood out. It's just open. You're going to cover that with wire screening, just like the 1x1 or something like that. So what that does is the cool air is coming in at the bottom on the floor and going up and out. Airflow.
Hmm. What is that? Floor?
Grids.
Oh, grids. You need to write a little bit neater so I can read it better.
Well, Sherry, you can be replaced. My co-host does not complain about anything I do.
Again, that's her, not me.
Um, The floor grids, if you go into our catalog, you'll find them. We have the big wood ones made of solid wood, and they're really big. People put them on the floor. What you do is you have a floor with 2x4s, with joists or 2x6s, whatever you happen to have down there, and these floor grids go right on the floor, and they can be cut to size. They're very big. I don't at least 40, 48 inches, something like that square. And what that does is once again creates airflow. But what really people use them for is the droppings go. Usually they have concrete or um, wood or plastic or something underneath or dirt, and all the droppings go down. So it's serving a dual purpose. It's allowing fresh air in, and the droppings are going down. Very heavy, very expensive to ship. A lot of people come and get them, but we do ship them, but we have to cut them in half. Lengthwise.
Yeah. Well, it depends. We don't have to, but it's more expensive.
Really expensive. Yeah. So if you're interested in that, as I say, if you want them cut a certain size, but you can do that by yourself. But we have an electric saw, and we cut them lengthwise, stack them together, and ship them that way. Because if you're going to lay them down, there's no need to nail them together anyways, because you're going at grid after grid after grid. You're wearing me out.
I know.
Hey, folks,
you're wearing me out.
We need questions. Come on, give us some questions. Ask us something so we can share it with you and with others.
Okay, well, the last one here you have over here is windows with 1x1 or small wire.
Well, I think I kind of
covered that.
Yeah, I covered that.
I kind of thought so, but I didn't want to get yelled at.
Causing me to repeat myself, and I don't like to do that. In fact, I'm an introvert. I really hate doing this show. I'm looking, I'm nervous, but I do it for the good of the company.
All right. Well, now, I guess since there's no other questions, we're going to move on to Pigeon Talks.
And then we have to do this
Yes.
at some point.
Yes.
Okay, Pigeon Talks. I went to this book. I talked about this book earlier, The Pigeon by Dr. Walker. I got most of the information about pigeon talks from this book. Let's take the question and we'll
Okay,
move.
Manny. How safe is treating enrofloxacin during breeding season?
No, no, no. No, no, no. No, no, no. And I know I can be contradicted. Enrofloxacin is Baytril. In fact, the real name of Baytril is enrofloxacin, not the other way around. Baytril is a knockoff of enrofloxacin. It's the strongest drug that you can buy. It's a great product, a good medication. Have to be very careful in using it. You have to follow the directions if you can buy it. We used to sell it, and the federal government paid us a visit, scared the hell out of us. But the only thing they did was they confiscated all the Enroxil we had. It's against the law to sell it, but I know a lot of people do. I wish I could. It's a good product, but follow directions. Don't vary from those directions, and I strongly suggest don't use it during breeding season. Manny, I appreciate it. Nice hearing from you again.
Okay, this is for James. When do you anticipate getting more of the heavy-duty plastic floor grates?
And James has asked us that question previously. I asked Gina today. The container is full. They come from York, and they have already called our broker to schedule the shipment to leave there. If everything goes right, I'm thinking 2 weeks. Don't know. The pandemic has had an effect on everything. It's slowed down production over there, similar to here. They make them, but the pandemic is also in Europe. So some of their workforce has been cut, or they've had to shut down for a period of time. It's affected the world. But according to the company, the products have been loaded and they're ready to come. We have a full container. So just keep in touch with us, James, and we'll have them for you as quick as we can.
Okay, are we going to get back to?
No, I want more questions.
Oh, well, I think we should talk about pox because we got a new pox vaccine.
Okay. All right. I wrote some notes, as I said. There's page number 3. There's page number 1.
I have one.
Oh, you have one. Okay. Pox. Can you describe pox? We'll just kind of do this. What is pox?
Like a lesion on their nose or beak or on their eye.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
is it treatable?
the lesion itself, and it helps it dry up.
But you can't cure it?
No.
Pigeon pox, according to Dr. Walker, just exactly as Sherry said. It's a crusty growth, scabby growth. The birds may look sick for a week or 2 weeks with no visible sign of the pigeon pox. Then all of a sudden you start to see these crusty things. So on occasion, um, the birds have it, but they have not shown it yet. It's not treatable, so nothing you can do when it does happen. So where are these crusty locations? Eye,
Beak.
beak. Get you
I know. Thinking. Trying to look at the picture it in my head.
anywhere that there's bare skin.
On their butt.
Their body. There's more bare skin.
Eyes. Beak.
Their feet.
Feet.
Feet. You're right there, weren't you? Just about ready to
I was
answer
going
that
down
question.
the line.
So the when you get the pox, it gets crusty, looks like a scab. The good news is it's not a killer. The bad news is you can't treat it. All you transmit it by biting one bird that's infected and then going over and biting another bird. Another way that it spreads is through the drinking water. Another way is bath water. So if you have an outbreak of pigeon pox, do not let them take a bath because it's going to be in the water. Another way that the pigeon pox itself, what do you do about that? We sell medications, not medications, permethrin 2, insecticides, sprays that kill bugs. The fly is darting underneath the feathers and hiding. So if you see them, you see the little tiny pinholes. A lot of times in the feathers, that's a fly, a pigeon fly. So you want to eliminate that. Okay, this is something that's important, but for really competitive people, some of them disregard it. Never fly your pigeons when you have an outbreak of the pox. A lot of people have pox and they have pigeons with no signs at all, so they fly the bird. If you've got the pox, your birds are either show symptoms or they've got it and haven't shown the symptoms yet. You ship them birds on a race, and what do? They interact with each other. They're not in individual compartments, so they're fighting. They're drinking the same water. You're passing on your problem to other people in the club. And believe me, if they know it was you, they're going to be very upset. So if you have pigeon pox, you may have to shut down the whole season because the pigeon pox itself takes about 14, 12 to 14 days to show its evil head, so to speak. But the birds can have pigeon pox for up to 4 to 6 weeks. So you can see where it can really screw up your racing season. But don't pass it on to others. Um, if your birds, we're going to talk about the vaccine, that's what brought the subject up. A new vaccine has been formed. Is it the same people? No, it's a different people.
I don't know.
It's a different company that makes our PMB and paratyphoid vaccine. So the vaccine that we offer for you is completely different than pigeon paratyphoid vaccines or what's the other one? PMV. PMV vaccines. Uh, this one works differently. You're going to get 2 vials. Overnight the best. It's expensive, but there's nothing else. We can't ship it regular because if it's warm, comes to room temperature, there's some question as to when it reached that temperature. So put it in a refrigerator. It cannot be reused because the way it works is you'll get a little thing with a handle and 2 uh, prongs sticking out, not very wide. You're going to create a bare spot. So you can do that by plucking a few feathers and there's a bare skin. You can also just push the feathers back and you'll see the bare skin. You take this applicator, you dip it in the vaccine that you've already mixed, and you do your burn. Now you can't take that applicator and go do another burn. You've got to keep dipping it, do a burn, dip it, do a burn. So pretty obvious that the vaccine itself is contaminated by you doing that. So once you're done vaccinating your birds, you've got to throw that away. You cannot put it in the refrigerator because it's contaminated, but it's the only way the pox vaccine works. Don't vaccinate sick birds. Important. I know I've mentioned that birds might have it for 2 weeks or so before it shows itself. If the birds look sick, don't vaccinate. But most of the time, they don't look sick until you see the outbreak. Can you quit now?
Yeah, I thought you were doing pretty good.
Yeah, gee, folks, we've got 15 more minutes. We can answer some more questions if you have them. Please help us out. We need some questions. We are, before we talk about that, I guess I've pushed this book enough. It's an encyclopedia of do's and don'ts and health and everything that you want to know about pigeons. Makes no sense to me. You invest two, three, 400 or 1,000 or $10,000 into your birds, but you don't have a good book like this, where you might have a question on the weekends when we're closed. Get the book. Get the book. Get the book. If I push that book further enough?
I think you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. I can tell you, I have a number of books at my home where I use them for research, but this one I wouldn't do without. I have others, but this one I wouldn't do without. I wanted to talk about this book, and then I won't talk a lot. But I wrote this book. I thought it was a couple of years ago, but it appears as though I wrote this book 5 or 6 years ago, Veronica. Do you remember? About 6 years ago. So it's a book on pigeon loft, and it has, I think, over 100 lofts in it to give you an idea when if you're going to build or improve your loft. It also has your loft or to build a new loft. This is the book you want to have. I'm looking at it. Can they see that, Veronica? There's this middle one intrigued me. The kid, he had built a slide in a jungle gym, so to speak, and they didn't need it anymore. So he built a loft and left the slide so the kids can still slide down, and it goes right over the pigeon coop. Hey, I missed you. Where you been?
Oh my goodness, you don't want to know.
You don't want to. I don't want to hear the information right now. On your elbow.
Well, I got a steroid shot.
A what?
Steroid shot.
Okay.
Come out driving. Well, first it's pouring down rain. I don't have no umbrella, no coat. I'm like, oh God. So I see the little the bags you put the umbrellas in. So I broke that open, put it over my head, and then I'm driving. I'm like, something don't seem right. I look down at my dash. My tire is at 1. So I swing around to the gas station, put air in it. It would only go to 19. I'm like, oh God. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to try to go back to work. It's going down 18, 17, 16. I'm like, ah.
You made it?
But I made it. It'll be flat when I get back out there, but I made it back to work.
Reminded me of the time a lot of folks don't know, I was on the radio for 10 years. And I was driving to the show, and as usual, late, I'm going down this highway, and I'm hitting 85. And there's that light behind me. And he didn't want to hear about me. I have to be on the air at 2 o'clock or whatever it was. He still gave me the damn ticket. So, anyway, all right. Well, welcome. Thank you very much for coming. And you hear all that noise? That's lightning and thunder. Let's see what Bert has to say.
Bert, are your clip-on bee perches in stock? No, they're not. We should have them probably in about 3 more weeks.
Don't we have the other kind of bee perches?
We only have the heavy duty right now. We don't have the standard. You can go in front of the screen. Yeah, we only have the heavy duty and the wood style right now.
Heavy duty, you can move that. UPS is still a thing. The heavy duty are great and were designed by our carpenter, John Raber. When it says heavy duty, it'll actually like kind of way it's put together. Chilly, huh?
Okay. It feels good. I was just not all that. Anyways, Bryson, have you ever had problems with red-tailed hawks while flying birds? Yeah.
The answer is no.
No.
A red-tailed hawk is generally a big bird. The young ones don't even have a red tail yet, but they're big and they're slow. Now, I'm not saying that they can't get birds, but generally, if your birds are flying and they see the hawk, they'll get away. They can fly much faster than a red-tailed hawk. The ones you got to be careful of. One of them is a Cooper hawk, and there's another one. I forget the name. They're real small, but they're real fast, and they can catch those birds. But generally speaking, red-tailed hawk's not a problem.
Okay. Phil, is it possible for a virus like Sarco, etc., to remain hidden for 6 months in breeding pairs and then suddenly show up in later rounds of babies? No new introduction of birds.
Phil, I hope you got a pencil. I'm going to give you my home phone number because I want to research that one. Off the top of my head, I don't know. So if you give me a call, if I don't call you back today, I'll call you within the next few days. My home phone, and don't feel guilty about using it. A lot of people do. I get anywhere from 20 to 30 calls a day. My home phone is 724 359 5355. You can leave a message if you want, but you don't have to. Every call that comes in is recorded, and I go down numerically the oldest to the newest to the oldest to the newest, and I'll call you back as soon as I possibly can. It's an interesting question. My email address, if you want to send that, see if I remember it correctly. It's my first name and my last name, Jerry Gagne, JERRYGAGNE, all small cap is fine, at foyspetsupplies.com. Did I get that one right? It's in the catalog too.
Yeah.
We mentioned, if you're just tuning in, the new catalog's available, absolutely free. Thanks, Phil. Well, we wanted to try this. Oh, we can go overtime if we have to.
Did you talk about everything already?
Yep. We want to talk about this.
Virus, the vaccine,
Yes.
all that.
If you'd have shown up on time, you'd know that. I'll tell you what, Sherry did a great job.
I know
Never
she did.
contradicted me once.
Really?
Never once.
Never interrupted you?
No, never interrupted me, nor did I interrupt her. It was like a flow.
Well, guess what?
What?
You can have a new partner. How about that? What do y'all think about that?
Oh, we're not even going to entertain that.
I
We're a
wouldn't
pair,
mind.
you know it, and I know it. Well, let's talk. I wanted to talk about this because we've been wanting to talk about it. The way I thought we
Okay.
could do it is you read the first paragraph, kind of, and we can discuss it if need be.
I'm gonna summarize it.
Okay, okay.
Okay. So I think we have mentioned. I think we mentioned it the last show, but if you want to advertise on our Facebook Live show, there's spots available for you to advertise. You can send pictures or text, whatever you want to add. We can read the ad. Can they read it? They can't read it, right? No. So we could read it for you, or you could send text, pictures, whatever.
Now, in selling things on our show, we're not talking just about pigeons, is that correct? If they have a product they want to sell and it doesn't compete with anything we have, we may have questions,
Right.
but if it passes the test, then we'll advertise it for you.
Right. There is a cost to it, so you would have to pay for that. Anything else you want to say about it?
We talked about the cost and things like that. It's all there.
You can also have the ad on our Facebook page. Which, how many likes do we have on Facebook? So we have over 100,000 likes on our Facebook page.
I can step in because I went
Go
through
ahead.
it all if you don't mind.
Yeah, no.
The ads are going to get the important thing about advertising on our show about pigeons is we're a pigeon show. There's no other pigeon show that I know of. It's $100 if you want a 30-second ad, and you can create it yourself, and we'll read it off. Or however, the important thing is to call Gina about it if you have questions. But a 30-second ad is a pretty long time. Now, if you want to do a second ad, if we can put, let's say you spend $100 and we'll do your ad today. Then 2 weeks from now, if you want the same ad or another ad, same person, then it's $75 per ad. So the more, if we go 100 and then multiple ads at $75 each, you know the giggling. See,
Yeah.
Sherry never did that, nor did Veronica. You two are in cahoots.
Yeah, well, you know, it
And well,
happens.
anything else?
Yeah, like he said, contact us. It can't be the day of the show. It has to be at least 2 days
Two
prior.
days before,
Yeah. We'll discuss it. We'll talk with you about it and go from there.
This is a negative, but if you advertise pigeons, they have to be banned. I'm sorry, they just absolutely have to be banned because who knows how old they are, and the buyer is trusting us too, and they have to be good birds. Don't try to sell junk, because we do have the ability to discontinue your ad if we find out and if we start getting complaints. But we're completely open. We want good pigeons. I'm not saying show winners or race winners necessarily, but good pigeons, good quality pictures as you could possibly give us so that we can put on the show.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then we have another, we just talked about, you can pay with credit card or how does that work?
Yes.
So they can, if you want to,
Oh, yeah,
the
there it
ads
is.
have to be paid for
Check
before
money
we go
order,
on the
credit
air.
card. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, hi,
Absolutely.
Phil.
We already did that one.
Oh,
Veronica's slacking over there.
Hubis, isn't that?
She's
Isn't that like?
slacking.
Isn't that like marijuana? What do they call it? Hibius, hobius? What is that?
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about.
I
Begins
do.
with H. Okay.
Yeah. My mind ain't here right now.
Really, I think this is a great opportunity for you to,
No.
one you've never had before in advertising. We advertise in Racing Pigeon Digest, Purebred Magazine, and the NPA Quarterly. But none of those magazines have 100,000 people likes, 100,000 likes, or daily. We've had as many when we started 100,000 viewers. So you're contacting a lot of people who are interested in your product. It's not in general. These are pigeon people reading your ad.
And also with the show, it's on our Facebook page, it's on YouTube, plus other people share it from their to their page, and other people see it.
But
so
if you want it
have
on
a big reach.
If you want it on Facebook, there's an extra charge. Is that correct?
Yes.
Lana? Yeah. Okay. But Gina's the expert. She's expert in something anyway. So you can. I haven't been able to pick on anybody all day. I tried to go easy with Sherry. I didn't want to, but I can pick on. Can we tell a story about the show's pretty much over about me last night and the drinking?
I mean, if you want.
Oh, should have fun. I don't drink a lot, but I like a cocktail, and I like Jack Daniels and Coke. So last night, Vicki and I went out to dinner to a local restaurant that we favor, and I ordered a Jack Daniels and Coke. And they brought it out and gave it to me, and I took a sip, and I said, "This doesn't taste right." So I let Vicki taste it. She said, "No, it's not the same." So the waitress, we thought maybe they used Diet Coke instead of regular Coke. So the waitress was fine. She took it back, and she brought me another one. Now, I've been drinking Jack Daniels for at least 50 years. So they gave me the drink. No big deal, tasted better. I drank it. And on the way home, Vicky, I'm giddy. I'm drunk as a skunk. I don't know how else to put it. I was laughing. I couldn't stop talking. I got home, and I'm still in one drink. I'm still home. I call up Kim because I'm drunk, and nobody answered. So I call Gina. What did I do, Gina? Tell them a little bit about what I was talking about. I don't even remember.
You was basically talking about what happened, how you got drunk off not even a full drink, and just a whole bunch of stuff. I was dying laughing.
Some of the stuff I was saying, there wasn't enough. So after I hung up on her, I'm still giddy for whatever. I don't know. I called two of my favorite customers. One was Bob, who donates the bird. He called me when I was gone yesterday. So when I got home, I noticed he called Bob. I said, "Hey, Bob." He says, "You're not going to believe this." I kept telling him all this goofy stuff, and he was laughing. Then I called another customer. So be warned if I've got your phone number and I'm getting wrong. But I swear, Vicki does too. We've been known each other for 40 years. She's never seen me get high or drunk on one drink. I think something was in that drink. Something was wrong because within 10 or 15 minutes, give me 3 or 4, I start talking.
Yeah,
but
not one.
Well, it's 4 o'clock.
It is.
Anything you want to cover? Because we have plenty of time.
I was just going to say, I don't know about y'all, but we just opened up, last Friday? So all of our restaurants are finally starting to open,
Yep.
and it's nice to be able to go out and eat.
That's what Vicky said. It's so nice to
Yeah.
go out. Some of them, none of them require a
And
mask. At least ones we went to, we've been to 2 restaurants. But the waiting staff all
Wear
have
'em,
masks
yeah.
and so forth.
Yep.
Well, one gentleman, I hope we didn't upset him. I forget his name, but he emailed us a question about the droppings, and we asked him to tell us the color the droppings were. First they were watery. He emailed back. Then we asked another question. He emailed back. Then we asked another question. Ain't heard from him since. I hope we didn't offend him. But it's the one thing we've shared with you folks before. One question leads to another question. So when you send in a question, it doesn't mean that initial question can be answered without us
Right.
seeking more
Asking more.
information.
Right.
Well, and I did mention that we got the money offered on the fantails, and I told them that Tom Pritchett donated them. We are going to donate. We're going to feature his pair of white fantails on our next show.
Okay. Awesome.
Should we?
Yes.
Is it over?
Yep. If you guys have any anything you want us to talk about on a future show, anything you want us to show product wise, just call and talk to Jerry or myself. Next show is Friday, July 3rd, and we'll see you then.